Welcome to Mindful with Minaa, where we explore how mindfulness can enhance your relationships and well-being. I'm your host, Minaa B, a licensed social worker, mental health educator, and author. Through insightful discussions, I will guide you towards self-awareness and self-efficacy, empowering you to effectively manage your relationships, reduce burnout, and be more present with yourself. So let's jump into today's episode. What's up, Mindful community? Welcome back to another episode of Mindful with Minaa. I'm your host, Minaa B, and today I want to give you some tips on how you can learn how to ask for help. Because here's the thing. A lot of us do not know how to ask for help. We feel embarrassed. We feel a great sense of shame, and shame tends to mean I am a bad person. And sometimes we even feel guilty, and guilt means I did something bad. And depending on how you grew up or just the messages you heard around asking for help can shape how you ask for help from people in your life, but also how you perceive asking for help, how you perceive yourself if you're in need of help, and so forth and so forth. I'm sure you can fill in the blank regarding the different narratives and ideologies you've heard around what it means to ask for help. But this is the reality. Everyone needs help. Even the people who probably taught you to believe asking for help makes you weak, I guarantee those people have sought help in their lifetime at some point. And if they did not, they suffered as a result of not asking for help. Do you want to be that person? I guarantee you don't. It's important to remember that seeking support is a part of being human. Whether you're going through a tough time emotionally, struggling with your mental health, or simply facing life's challenges, because life is always going to throw challenges our way, it's okay to admit that you can't do something alone. So why is the resistance there? Why is there so much shame wrapped up in asking for help? So let's unpack that really quickly. There is a difference between how men and women perceive help because we are also conditioned by societal norms. So for men in particular, there's often the expectation to be stoic and unemotional, which creates an even more intense barrier to vulnerability. And for women, there's the cultural expectation to always be the caretaker, and asking for help can sometimes feel like a threat to that role. Also, it can create this idea that you're not supposed to be in need of help because you're supposed to be the person providing people with support and care. And in both cases, asking for help can feel like admitting you're not living up to societal standards of strength or independence. But here's the thing. Needing help doesn't make you any less capable, strong, or worthy. So now that we got some of those stigmas out the way, I want to flip the narrative really quickly because I want you to remember that asking for help is a sign of emotional maturity. If there is anything that you take away from this episode, please take this. Asking for help is a sign of emotional maturity, courage, and self-awareness. I always say asking for help doesn't make you weak, it actually makes you wise. When you ask for help, you're admitting that you recognize your limits and that you're not afraid to face them. So it shows that you're a resilient person. It also shows that you're okay with confronting your fear. You're demonstrating self-compassion, acknowledging that it's okay to not have all the answers or the resources at the moment. And that's powerful. Asking for help is also an act of vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage to open up and be honest about your struggles. Whether you choose to reach out, you're not only offering others the chance to support you, you're also giving yourself permission to feel, which is something many of us avoid, especially when we're struggling. If we're struggling with anxiety, depression, or just needing help because we're burdened, we're overwhelmed, we're overworked. Asking for help is also giving yourself permission to be cared for. And here's the thing, help comes in many forms. It could be asking a friend for advice, seeking professional support from a therapist, reaching out to a mentor, or even asking for help at work when your plate is too full. It doesn't always have to be a grand gesture. It can be small steps that add up over time. So when you feel the urge to ask for help, recognize that this is an act of strength, and also recognize that it is a form of wisdom, not weakness. So, I want to unpack really quickly what the mental health benefits of asking for help can be so that you can have an idea of how this correlates to your mental well being. I work with a lot of clients who are always constantly in a state of stress, whether they're experiencing stress from work or even emotional distress from circumstances happening in their lives. And it's important to understand that when we're in a state of emotional distress or mental exhaustion, the weight of the world can feel unbearable sometimes. But when we reach out for support, we allow ourselves to share that burden, and that can be incredibly healing. Research has actually shown that social support is one of the most important factors for mental well being. In fact, a study published in Psychological Science found that people with strong social connections are healthier, live longer, and are less likely to experience mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Why? Because connection reduces isolation. When we're struggling, it's easy to feel like we're alone in our experiences, but the truth is, asking for help can be the first step toward realizing that we're not alone. There are people who care, who understand, and who want to help. There's also a relief that comes with sharing your burdens. Research in social and clinical psychology suggests that verbalizing your challenges can reduce emotional stress and create cognitive clarity, allowing you to think through problems more clearly and logically. This is why I always encourage audio journaling, for example, when you're experiencing mental fog or having a lot of anxious thoughts. When you talk out loud, you can hear the discrepancy in your thinking. And so I think it's important to remember too that help shows up in many different ways. And when we're asking for help, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're expecting someone to have a solution. Sometimes it could just be, I need to verbally process this with somebody. And in that act of just letting it all out, you may actually get clarity without even needing feedback. So this is why it's really important to not bottle things in and find someone in your life that you can release to, that you can open up to and be vulnerable enough to share. This is the thing that is actually mentally weighing me down, and I need to verbalize what's happening for me so that I can reduce the stress that I'm carrying. Another thing about sharing what's happening with us and asking for help is that there's a sense of empowerment that comes when we reach out. By acknowledging that we need help, we're actively taking charge of our mental health. And this is a key aspect of something we call post-traumatic growth, which is the process of becoming stronger and more resilient after hardship. So asking for help is part of building that resilience. If you're struggling with something, whether it's anxiety, depression, or personal struggles, remember that reaching out is not only okay, but it's actually playing a role in your healing process. So now that I've established why it's important and powerful to ask for help, I'm going to give you some practical ways you can start doing that today. The first thing is to be honest with yourself. Recognize when you're overwhelmed or struggling and admit that you need support. If you're in a state of in denial, then you're not going to ask for help. So you need to learn how to face reality and recognize that you're going through something. And this is the first step and the hardest step, but what you're doing is acknowledging your feelings without judgment. The next thing you're going to do is start small. If you're not ready to reach out to a therapist or professional support, start by talking to a trusted friend, family member, or colleague. Sometimes just voicing your feelings is enough to lighten the load. And if you find that you don't have members in your community that you can share certain things with, this might be a sign that you may need to reach out to a professional provider, a therapist or a counselor, someone who can actually hold space for you and provide you with resources and feedback. Another thing when you're asking for help is it's really important to be specific about what you need. So instead of saying, "Can you help me?" I'm going through something. Try this. I'm really struggling with managing my workload. Could you help me prioritize tasks or give me some advice? Now, this could be specific to a work related situation. In platonic relationships or even romantic relationships, you can say, I feel really burdened by the tasks that I have in the home. Can you help me with washing the dishes and doing the laundry while I focus on the other tasks in the household? That is a way that you can communicate needing help from your partner. In your friendships, you can let someone know there are times where I feel really overwhelmed or burdened by things that happen at work. And so, can you help me sort through some of these problems? I really just need a listening ear. That is how you can start to get more specific about what you want the outcome to be. And it can also help people assess if they can actually be supportive to you, if they can actually give you the thing that you're looking for. And if they can't, that also reminds you, okay, well, this is not the person that can support me with this thing. So this means I need to find someone who can. And again, this might mean finding support within our network, but also hiring help and support. There are times where I'll hear people say, I'm struggling with maintaining my home because I'm a single mom and I'm working a full-time job and I have all of this stuff happening. And I'm like, have you considered hiring help? Sometimes help looks like I need to tap into resources outside of my network, and I need to engage in professional resources and hire people to help me with certain things to manage the load that I'm carrying. So remember to be specific about what you need, but also remember help can come in a variety of forms, and sometimes we have to pay for help, and that is also okay. The last thing I want to share with you is to continue to normalize asking for help. The more you talk about it, the more you do it, the less stigma there is. So normalize seeking support in your circles, whether it's your family circle, your friendships, honestly, even on social media. I can't tell you the amount of connections that I built because I DM'd someone who I already had interactions with, of course, whether it be through DMs or in their comments. And finally, one day I was just like, would you be able to provide me with some feedback or some information regarding publishing or regarding brand partnerships or just regarding something in particular because I need some help there. And this is how I was able to form a lot of connections by being vulnerable because guess what? Some of those people were actually hoping to speak to me about the same thing or just for something different. And then it became this transactional thing where can I offer you this service in exchange for your help with this? So sometimes you got to look at asking for help as a barter system too, because there are people who also want help from you. And this is on a professional level, and you can provide them with that support in exchange for getting support as well. So if you're hearing this today and you've been holding on to your struggles in silence, I want to encourage you to let go of the shame. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's an act of strength, self-love, and wisdom. It's about recognizing your worth and the value of your mental health. You deserve support, and you do not have to navigate life's challenges alone, nor should you. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to share it with a friend. Also, please remember to leave a review and rate this podcast wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Please check the description box so that you can subscribe to my newsletters, Mindful with Minaa, as well as I'm So Mature. And if you are currently seeking professional help, I am taking on clients. And so if you want to book a 15-minute therapy consultation with me, you can find the link attached in the description box as well. So let's continue to embrace vulnerability and build strength in our willingness to ask for help. Remember, it's not only okay to need help, it's also okay to ask for it because it's necessary for our growth, healing, and resilience. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time.